HILT leader captain, DJ3.
Yeah! Woo! All right, it's me. It's my, hey, good morning, HILT. How are you today? I hope you are having a tremendously fabulous day. And yes, I am this high energy all of the time. I want to welcome you to our first quarterly meeting of 2021. Again, I'm DJ3. I'm the Director of Talent Pathways and Learning at HealthPoint. And I want you to know today we have a packed agenda of meaningful engagement planned for you today. So before we get into that, I just want to take a quick moment for those of you who are already been part of HILT, you know this, but if this is your first time coming to spend some time with us, really wanted to take a moment and let you know who we are. So HILT is an acronym for the Health Industry Leadership Table. We're a network. We're your network. We're advocates. We're people who are passionate about healthcare and making sure that everyone gets the great care that they deserve. We're a very diverse group. We're small organizations. We're large organizations that are all located in King County who come together to flex our collective muscles. We have some amazing partnerships that we have cultivated over time, and we support them through the effort of the folks who are part of this group of wonderful people. Our goal is really to solve some of the most immediate healthcare challenges, and we see that as kind of being related to workforce issues. There are these sorts of issues that we all experience, but none of us can individually fix. So it's coming together, coming up with creative solutions, working collectively to implement those solutions that we strive to make a change. We've made great strides since our launch in 2018. We've even fought our way through the pandemic, and we still survive. We're still strong. We're still growing. We're still together. And yes, we still need you and your unique talents, gifts, and abilities. Now I know, hey, I'm busy, DJ3. I got a lot of stuff going. Why should I take on one more thing? Well, just here's some of the incredible stuff HILT has been doing over the during this winter. You know, we're going to have people who are going to come up and share about participations, right, between our community clinics and supporting partners around funding and training opportunities for healthcare organizations. And a lot of you fit in that space to train and rehire laid off workers to support the vaccination rollout. We are excited to share lessons learned and strategies by big hospital systems and community clinics around COVID-19 vaccination rollout and how those partnerships have developed to help with key logistics to be successful. We're then going to break out into small groups to have conversations, to hear your voice. We're looking forward to your participation and your sharing of ideas. We're going to bring up to speed on our winter initiatives, including the active HILT committee focuses on the talent pipeline development and our behavioral health workforce. As always, we've got some amazing opportunities for you to plug in, contribute, and benefit from the HILT network. We want to thank you so very much for getting involved in the King County HILT network today. And just before I bring in our next presenter, I personally want to thank every one of you for what you do. We are making a difference because of you. And you might be saying, hey, DJ3, I am busy. Yep, you're busy. I'm busy. We're all busy. But if we all can just find a little space to give just a little bit, yours plus theirs plus theirs plus theirs becomes this massive, overwhelming energy and passion that can change our environment. That's what HILT's about. It's your organization, and we need you. So thank you for your participation. Thank you for your passion. Thank you for your energy. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Jesus Valdez Torres. Jesus is the Health Center Administrator for Seymour Community Health Centers. Jesus, the floor is yours to share with HILT a new partnership opportunity related to the vaccine rollout.
Thanks, DJ3. I appreciate it, and I appreciate your energy this early in the morning. Giving me a little bit of energy just by contact here. So yeah, I think as I've attended these meetings sporadically over the last year or so, I think especially now that with the vaccine rollout, we've all been pretty vocal about the need for support on site with vaccine rollout. And so that goes as far as, nursing staff, clinical talent, putting shots in arms, but also other support staff. We know that it doesn't happen just with the clinical staff. So we need, COVID screeners, we need registration staff, readers, we need people who to direct traffic, that kind of thing. And so I received an email a couple weeks ago from the HILT network, and it connected us with a great opportunity to have temporary workers on site to help specifically with disaster relief activities. That is at the point where we're tailoring our job descriptions to be specific to disaster relief. We're really excited about this opportunity, and we want to make sure that everybody here is aware so that you can also take advantage. I had the pleasure of meeting with Marisol Tapia Hopper. She is the program manager in charge of this opportunity, and so I'll hand it over to her to tell you a little bit about the eligibility qualifications and how this can benefit your healthcare organization. So without further ado, Marisol.
Thank you, Jesus, and thank you, everyone, and thank you, Liesl, for this invitation. I do have a presentation that I have prepared for today, so if I may use this opportunity to share my screen, that would be great. Thank you. All right, well, thank you again. My name is Marisol Tapia. I'm a project manager at the WDC. And like Jesus said, I oversee 2 disaster relief grants. And today I want to share information about the Disaster Recovery Dislocated Worker Grant and how this funding can support the COVID-19 efforts of healthcare providers. We know that COVID-19 has disproportionately exacerbated the inequities borne by Black, Indigenous, people of color, and immigrants and refugee communities. And at the WDC, we're being very intentional by explicitly centering racial equity in our work and by focusing on BIPOC workers, immigrants, and people that have been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. And we're doing this by increasing opportunities, scaling the impact of our outreach and service delivery, but also working towards a shared vision where we integrate the knowledge and expertise of communities and stakeholders. So the purpose of the Disaster Recovery Dislocated Worker Grant is to create a cohesive response to the COVID-19 crisis by providing temporary subsidized disaster relief employment and other comprehensive services so that enrolled individuals impacted by the crisis receive the necessary support and services from our partners. A little bit about the funding structure of this grant. So this grant comes from the Department of Labor, which directs the funds to our state through the Employment Security Department. Those funds are then directed to local boards like the WDC, and then we direct those funds to the community organizations that we work with. We're very fortunate to work with a diverse team of service providers and partner with them to deliver culturally and linguistically appropriate services to job seekers and support disaster relief employment work sites. And here we have 5 different community-based organizations that we partner with to do this work, including Asian Counseling and Referral Services, Neighborhood House, Pacific Associates, Track Associates, and the YWCA. And Disaster Recovery Grant provides a comprehensive set of services, including career services like case management, wraparound support, work-based learning, disaster relief employment, and training services as well. Disaster relief employment provides the fund for the creation of disaster relief employment, which is temporary employment for eligible individuals who have been laid off for the purpose of mitigating the economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. It supports the COVID-19 relief efforts of healthcare providers, nonprofits, food banks, and government agencies. Disaster relief employment created under this grant must align with employment related to the delivery of humanitarian assistance in response to COVID-19. It also provides full wages and benefits reimbursement for individuals that are employed in disaster relief positions. And these are some of the positions that could be supported under this grant, where healthcare organizations potentially could receive full wages and benefits reimbursement. Some of those positions include vaccine ambassadors, contact tracers, home health aides, sanitation workers, front door screeners, vaccinators, intake specialists, community outreach workers, peer counselors, among some of them. It covers full wages and benefits, either part-time or full-time. That's up to the work site to decide. Wages must be consistent with the wages of the supervising entity's other employees. And participants in disaster relief employment may be employed for a maximum of 12 months or 2,080 hours. The program ends March 31st of 2022. And what costs are not reimbursable? So admin costs, staff time of existing personnel, and activities that are not related to COVID-19 relief efforts. So in a nutshell, that's the grant. I wanted to make sure that you all had the opportunity to learn a little bit more about it and see if this is an opportunity that you might be interested in partnering with us in the future. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Marisol. Really appreciate that presentation. So if anyone is interested in connecting with Marisol about the opportunities of having workers that could help with the disaster relief efforts, and in this case, it's defined as kind of vaccine support at your organization. Marisol, could you put your email in the chat so people can reach out to you directly?
Yes.
Great. Yeah, this is a really incredible opportunity to connect with a program that kind of, rolled out pretty quickly with regards to the global pandemic. And so we're really excited that this can be an opportunity for our healthcare organizations here in King County to connect with staff support. As you've all been saying, it's really needed at the moment. So thank you so much, Marisol. All right, so we're going to move on to our next topic. I'm going to hand it over to James Ramirez to talk a little bit about nursing retention and pipeline focus. James, it looks like you've been muted.
Thank you. That was correct. Good morning, everyone. My apology about that. For HILT Nursing, HILT has been a strong voice in this arena, and we heard from you as a healthcare organization repeatedly about COVID and one of the most critical needs. One of the big issues that we heard about was nurse burnout. So we responded, and thank you to the Washington Center for Nursing for connecting us to the expert on the topic of Dr. Tatiana Sadak from the University of Washington for an incredible presentation. If you were there, you really got a lot of information about the topic, and that was hosted on a January Lunch and Learn. Some of the takeaways that I took, which were astonishing, were 30 to 35% of nurses may experience some type of depression and anxiety in this whole pandemic, and it's been increased, with 40% experiencing some kind of insomnia. When I look at that, I mean, that's almost a third to a half. And that's a lot of people that are being affected, not only the people with COVID and those kinds of things, but also the nurses and the medical support. Another takeaway that I got was coaches of coaching of all healthcare providers in management roles to offer psychological first aid and grief support. It's so important that in our healthcare system that we are reaching out to those professionals and offering that psychological support. I used to be a nurse myself. I was a nurse in the Army Reserves a very long time ago. And as nurses, I think we always take upon ourselves to constantly give, and help. When really we need to also focus some of that assistance to our nurses and those frontline support. And the third takeaway that I took was the recharge spaces. Now, those recharge spaces, they're kind of areas within either a hospital or clinical setting, anywhere that professionals can go and decompress. In this example that we're showing pictures, there was a movie going on, there was videos, no sound, but just kind of relaxing ambiance. There might be some aromatherapy going on in there as well. So it's a place that people can go and decompress and get away from all the anxiety. A lot more beneficial information was shared. And if you want that information, if you missed it, we want to welcome you to share that with your nurse supervisors and share it with all your colleagues. You can go to www.ckinghilt.com. And we do have the presentation there ready to roll on. In fact, I checked it this morning and it's really a fantastic video once again. It's going to be talking basically about the impact of COVID on nursing, and then obviously looking at all those potential outcomes that we can help support our frontline workers. Part of HILT's role, as you know, is the quality information that we share on critical topics, just like the one that we're doing today and the one that we did in January. We want to give you a heads up on 2 nursing related items that are coming up. The first one is the Washington Center for Nursing is conducting research related to the impact of COVID-19 on nursing education in our region. It's such an important research. The findings will be released in May, so a little bit later this year, and we will make sure that you are informed when the report comes out. And the second thing is the Washington Center for Nursing is also designing a nurse mentoring initiative specifically targeted at retention and advancement of BIPOC nursing communities, so Black, Indigenous, persons of color. Again, we will keep you posted as we learn more. Thank you once again for coming here today, and we appreciate it and sharing this collaborative information.
Great.
One of the things, sorry, I was looking at the PowerPoint. We have talked about nursing interns as well. And looking at nursing interns, some of the words are clinical, practical, clinical sites. So we are looking to see if there are any organizations that have an interest in becoming a student nursing clinical site in that rotation. If you do, go ahead and just message one of us. You can do Liesl or myself. And we are kind of collecting that information now to see how we can partner individuals with the educational systems for the nursing programs and the industry leaders. So if you have any interest in that, please do reach out. Thank you.
Hey, James.
Yes.
Hi, this is Brianna. May I just say that your display is backwards so we can see like your current slide and your next slide. So is there a way for you to be able to adjust that?
Thank you. Yes.
You're welcome.
Sorry.
I mean, I always love to know what's coming next, but you know.
I'm going to stop share and I'm going to share the other one. How about that?
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, gosh.
Great. So that's a great transition to our next topic. We have Denise Benuelos, the Director of Equity, Inclusion, and Diversity and Workforce Development at Kaiser Permanente, who is going to talk to us and update us on how the Winter Education Information Exchange back in January went and share some outcomes with you all. Denise, take it away. It looks like you're on mute.
Thank you, LaSalle. I want to thank everyone who was able to attend HILT's Winter Education Information Exchange on January 27th, from our post-secondary partners to all of our healthcare industry leaders. So as you all know, the purpose of these exchanges is a deliberate and consistent back and forth between the region's post-secondary education partners and healthcare providers. The focus of the meeting revolved around COVID vaccine education, outreach, rollout, and student opportunities. So on the education front, all nursing students and faculty who have wanted it have been able to get the vaccine. However, support for new graduates is a challenge right now because students have more simulation experience than hands-on clinical experience. Educators that know healthcare needs these graduates now more than ever, but graduates are less confident with less patient care hours. So therefore, our education partners have asked healthcare partners feedback on our students' capacity and how that translates to supervision. For my industry partners, please let your education partnership know how much more recent graduates can and could be supported better in the days to come as they enter the workforce. So on the healthcare organizations, they shared the reality of vaccine logistics, which included many healthcare organizations placing a lot of organizational energy into vaccine distribution, expanding partnerships to get the vaccine to as many people as possible. Any update that there was a shortage since the vaccine allocations for healthcare organizations in King County and Washington have reduced tremendously since December, as well as widespread hesitancy and reluctance among particular communities, especially communities of color around the vaccines in general. So this is due in part to general misbeliefs about the vaccine, but primarily it contributes to the attitudes of the historical abuses communities of color have received in the past. And secondly, on the non-white folks who experience loss has shown that public health officials have not always told the truth. The biggest takeaway is from the meeting is there's an interest in having students work with healthcare sites that help with vaccine education, outreach, as well as distribution and shots. So Kaiser Permanente provided an immediate opportunity to connect with Carly for student nurses to volunteer. They can use their time with KP toward clinical hours. And as you know, there are healthcare providers opportunities for education, outreach, and distribution for student nurses to volunteer. So I would love to open the floor briefly to any of my healthcare peers to share any opportunities they might have for student nurses to help participate and help with vaccine distribution. Please feel free to also put your needs as well in contact information in the chat box.
Hey Denise, this is Jennifer Graves. I just wanted to offer a few framing comments for the students. There was a recent state law and rules that were passed in mid-December that give some constrictions around how organizations can use currently enrolled students in vaccine efforts. There's two criterion that need to be met, one or the other. They don't need to be both. One is that the students need to be coming to the organizations as part of their formal clinical rotations under the policies and procedures and supervision agreements that are part of that particular school. And second, our state in Washington, we're very fortunate, has a nurse technician law, so we can actually hire students who are currently enrolled and in good standing in nursing program into a nurse technician paid position. So those are the two constraints. We can't take students just who are wanting to come and volunteer. We've had to kind of curtail those efforts to make sure that they're meeting one or two of those criterion with their school. Yeah.
Thank you, Jennifer. That's very helpful.
Yeah.
To clarify, as we have educators on our board that have expressed interest. So that's very helpful to know. Another takeaway from the meeting is the need to reframe the conversation of Black, Latinx, and other communities of color unease about the vaccine due to egregious historical mistreatment from the healthcare industry. So it's important that you know, during the conversation, many resources were shared and related to how to talk with the communities about the vaccine safety. And you all should have received these resources in a meeting recap email. But please let Lisa know if you would like these resources shared with you again. So again, I want to thank you all, thank all of our partners, education and healthcare, for their perseverance, bravery, and willingness to participate during this time of unknowns, pain, and trauma. And with that, I'll pass it back to LaSalle to talk about another initiative the HILT Network has been working on this winter.
Thanks so much, Denise. Really appreciate that. It was a really great conversation at the information exchange. Two really interesting takeaways that we got, and definitely hoping to be able to provide more information and resources around those two takeaways in the future. Jennifer, thank you so much for that additional information for this network. It's tremendously helpful to know that as well. I'm going to turn it over to Charlotte Jones. Charlotte Jones is our Behavioral Health Committee Chair, and she's also the Chief People and Diversity and Inclusion Officer at Sound Health. She's going to give us an update on the Behavioral Health Committee work that happened basically all throughout 2020, as well as what they've been up to in 2021.
Hey, thank you, Lisa. I appreciate it. Hello, everyone. As she said, I'm Charlotte Jones. I am the chief. I have a long title, but Chief People, Diversity, Equity, Justice, and Inclusion Officer for Sound. Some of you may remember Sound as Sound Mental Health. I am somewhat new, actually I am new to the HILT network, but still very excited to be a part of it and to learn and to partner with all of you. So over the last few months, the committee has been discussing the things that we will be working on throughout the spring. But the last half of the year, understanding the priorities of the behavioral health industry leaders, as well as what our current landscape is and what's happening in behavioral health with King County, in especially Washington State. So there were three primary areas of focus. And looking at those, the first one is recruitment, which we can probably all relate to, specifically people who have connections to the communities where we serve, and those with dual languages and the abilities to communicate to those different cultures and races. The second is retention of talent, which we are all faced at this moment. Within our organizations, within the behavioral health occupations. And then the third is clinical supervision, which can be very expensive coming into this field. So for the capacity of the organizations to supervise new talent and ease the reimbursement restrictions for that supervision. So this winter, the committee also entered into a partnership, a very exciting partnership with the University of Washington School of Social Work. It's a program to positively impact the behavioral health clinics. So the program will focus on 3 programs to increase the number as well as the quality of the job applicants for licensed mental health provider positions. Focus on this community behavioral health agencies will be to, those that serve the Medicaid population and impacted by the severe and critically and long-lasting mental health and substance disorders. The university is in the early stages of the planning. So there's a drafting program plans that we're working on, and we will continue to go through in the spring, but we're currently working on the continuous involvement of stakeholders. So some of you may receive an email from myself or Liesl to help be a part of this and who can be hands-on ownership of the different community behavioral health systems. So we are in the midst of doing that outreach, as I said, to others, and we're really looking forward to meeting with the UW School of Social Work team, which I believe will be in March, to really start and kick off the designing project and to figure out what the next steps will be. The next opportunity that was brought to our attention is the creation of the behavioral health tech apprenticeship. Now, this we're going to be engaged in this, but this is an apprenticeship that was or that is through SEIU 1199, the multi-employer training fund team. I hope I have that correct. So they're developing this, and I don't know if Laura's here or not. I'm looking at the screen over here. Okay. So
hi, this is Diane Sosney with the union. Laura's not here today.
Okay, Diane, do you have any information about it?
Well, we're very actively engaged with partners, a lot of partners in developing this. This is a need that is great, you know, exacerbated during this time of COVID. So we'll be having more information for people as we get ready to roll it out.
Okay, thanks, Diane, and it's nice to meet you.
Yeah, thanks, Charlotte.
I will actually work with Liesl and Ryan if we can get more information to you guys in the next couple of weeks as well. So, and next is going to be another new opportunity that the HILT network brought to my attention. The one, sorry, I'm looking at my notes, but excited to share with you all is, I'm sorry, both in healthcare and education. So look for more information about this in the next couple of weeks. Some of it will be coming from Liesl, so that's why I'm stumbling over my words. But this is a new grant from the Department of Health and Human Services. The purpose of the grant fund program is to develop and expand community-based experiential training to increase the supply of students preparing to become peer support specialists and other behavioral health-related paraprofessionals. So eligible applicants include state licensed mental health, nonprofit and for-profit organizations, including academic institutions, universities, colleges, and technical schools. So Liesl is including the link to the grant information in the chat. So if anyone is interested in learning more or continuing to be a part of this, please let me know and let Liesl know. So lastly, we also, we partner with the Washington State Workforce Training and Education Coordinating Board around policy recommendations that were created from the Behavioral Health Assessment Report. And Nova, did I say that correctly? Are you on the call?
Here, this is actually Julia O'Connor. Nova isn't with us anymore, but I was the project lead on that, so I'm happy to speak to it if you need.
Please, could you give us an update?
Yeah, so we are obviously, as many of you know, in the midst of legislative session. We're nearing the halfway mark. And so we've had several items that were included in the governor's budget, including funding to develop the teaching clinic enhancement rate, which will be hopefully utilized to help adequately compensate community behavioral health agencies for the really vital training role they play. And the intention is to develop that not just by asking the healthcare authority to do it, but have them partner with the Washington Council for Behavioral Health to ensure that they really adequately address the concerns of employers and that they, you know, the process isn't just led by the payer, but also by the folks who are bearing this cost. So that's one major item. The governor has also flagged about $2 million for the use of mental health professionals in crisis response, and some of that stems from our work. We specifically recommended looking at the use of peers in responding to crisis work because we obviously have a workforce shortage in all aspects of behavioral health with the exception of peers. We actually have a surplus and they are more than capable of working in that field. And finally, the governor included funding for a background check assessment task force, knowing that our stakeholder group, while almost 300 strong and incredible, doesn't have necessarily the legal expertise that, say, the Office of the Attorney General might have. And so asking for the Attorney General's office, the governor's office, DOH, DSHS, et cetera, to take a hard look at some of the RCWs and WACs that currently govern our behavioral health employment system and how folks can enter into that field. There's also other items of legislation up, including House Bill 1311, which refers to some of the other work that's being done with apprenticeship. So behavioral health tech is one apprenticeship that they're working on, or we are working on developing. There's actually another for a certified peer counselor, as well as an SUDP credential. And so House Bill 1311 would allow registered apprenticeship to be part of the educational requirements for becoming an SUDP, and that's moved through the House process and is on its way to the Senate, or has already arrived there. Former Speaker Frank Chop has a bill, House Bill 1504, that incorporates several concepts from our report, including incentives for supervision. So really looking at how can we incentivize folks to not only provide good supervision, but also become good supervisors and allow particularly that community-based behavioral health community to pay them adequately, knowing that we're placing this really significant financial burden on those agencies to train our workforce, and also to train up good supervisors who will mentor and clinically train and teach really that workforce. So looking at how can we either have a pilot program or get additional funding into the training of supervisors and the provision of supervision. And finally, increased funding for loan repayment for clinical behavioral health workers. So looking at the WASAC behavioral health program under the Washington Health Corps and increasing funding there so that they can increase the number of people able to participate.
Awesome. And Julia, it seems like I'd love to talk more. I mean, obviously, outside of this, but how this actually complements and or works with what we're doing with UW as well, because it sounds like a lot of combined effort can be made.
Yeah, I actually wasn't able to be at the last behavioral health meeting. I believe Nova was. I ironically was at my therapy appointment. So that's a non-negotiable time of my day. But I would love to have more conversations. And we've been very fortunate to be part of HILT for about a year now, and have had a chance to meet with Liesl and with Jennifer and the folks who are doing this incredible work. So always happy to talk more about it.
Well, I'd appreciate it, especially being new to HILT. This would be a welcome opportunity for me. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so finally, anyone who is interested in learning more about our particular community committee, and or about any of the partnerships that we're currently a part of, please just let me know or let Liesl know. And if anyone has questions, be happy to answer them or put them in chat, and Liesl or myself will follow up with you. I really appreciate meeting all of you. And DJ3, I wish I had your energy with my team huddles every morning, trust me.
This is Jennifer Johnston from Highline. Just wondering if anybody knows if anybody is applying for the HHS grant.
I don't.
Jennifer, this is the first time we've like formally shared it with HILT. I'm sure people have found out about it through other avenues and channels as well. But if anyone is interested in learning more about the grant, or you're seeing people's titles and organizations in the chat box, and you think that there's a partnership opportunity, please feel free to contact me. I'm happy to connect. It does look like partnerships between behavioral health agencies, yeah, and education are, I mean, that's going to be the fundamental foundation of the program from the grant. So it looks like Jennifer is interested in partnering.
Well, I'm just going to say that coalitions are awesome on that kind of thing. So yeah, thank you, Liesl. That's perfect.
Yeah. So simmer on it. Any behavioral health organizations interested? Looks like we have education. Happy to be part of a coalition. Thank you again so much, Charlotte. Really excited for you to be here and your leadership. James, if you could go back a few slides. I jumped ahead a little bit in the agenda, but I wanted to give Randon the floor to talk a little bit about the commitment to anti-racism from the HILT network. This has been something that we talked about since its inception, but I'd really love for Randon to to kind of give us an overview of where we are in the process of developing the statement to HILT's commitment to anti-racism. So I'll turn it over to Randon. Thank you.
All right, I didn't have any coffee, so I'm going to try to do the DJ3 thing and just try to get more energy. But thanks, Lisa, for that introduction. My name is Brandon, and I am representing the HILT Captains team in ICHS. Back in the beginning of HILT, back in May of 2018, which seemed to be 25 years ago, the organizations that make up the network of HILT have been very intentional to ensure that racial equality is prioritized, and the anti-racism commitments and actions were woven throughout the very fabric of our work. Centering our work around anti-racism and making sure that we all have the tools and we are qualified to continue to do this work in the name of anti-racism takes time, effort, and intention. The HILT captains are committed to this idea. Therefore, the HILT captains will be developing a statement that frames HILT's commitment to centering our work in anti-racism. While the captains team is excited to start this conversation, we wanted to open up this discussion to anyone else who is interested. A calendar invite will be going out later today for, save the date, for March 2nd from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. So please let us know of your interest in the chat box now. Finally, I wanted to thank Dante Batingan of ICHS and Dr. Ali Thomas of Kaiser Permanente and Kevin Henry from Sound for continually reframing conversations within the HILT network around anti-racism and advocating for a commitment statement. We hope to see you there. Thanks, and I now turn it back to Lisa.
Thank you so much, Brandon. And yes, as a reminder, save the date will go out into your calendars later today. With that, we're going to continue with the HILT committee updates, and I'm going to open the floor up to Brianna Jackson, who is the chair of our Talent Pipeline Committee, to give you all an update about what the do throughout winter 2020-2021, and an update on the virtual event coming up this spring. Brianna, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lisa, so much. It's such a pleasure to be able to have this opportunity to work with you all and to share with you all about the wonderful work that the Talent Pipeline Committee has been involved in. I am Brianna Jackson. I work for Kaiser Permanente, Washington as a talent management strategy consultant. And I also have the pleasure, as Lisa said, to be able to lead the Talent Pipeline Committee. We have been hard at work really over the last, I want to say almost 2 years since the last time that we had the opportunity to have an in-person event for our high school students. And now we actually have something to be able to share that we are going to be doing. We are partnering with Pierce County to be able to offer a virtual experience for students, specifically, thank you, targeting Black, Latinx, and students of color who have an interest in learning about health sciences and health careers. So we'd love for you all to, save the date for our virtual event, which is going to be the last week of April, so April 26th through the 30th. So, times will be coming out about, what the opportunities are, but it's really important that you start thinking about, how might I want to show up during that week to be able to offer support to this particular group. We're very excited to be able to partner with many large and small healthcare providers across the state of Washington to be able to offer this experience. Our focus, again, truly is targeting students of color, and we're taking the steps to be able to ensure that we are centering our event around committing to anti-racism. Before I talk to you about how you might want to get involved, I want to talk to you a little bit more about what the week is going to look like. And so as you see on the screen now, the first day is going to be about charting opportunities in health. So we're going to have a keynote and welcome really focused around two major things. The groups were very, very adamant about making sure that students are aware of the importance of well-being. So understanding how important it is as a healthcare provider to be able to make sure that you're taking time for self-care. And we were supportive of that. We were hopeful to be able to have someone talk about that, but we also wanted to talk about how important it is as a student of color to really be able to show up in these spaces. We don't have enough providers of color or enough people in healthcare, especially in leadership, who look like the communities that we're looking to serve. And so the keynote is really going to be focused on both of those things. How do you continue to move yourself toward a healthcare career and last, so that you are able to continue to give to your community without burning yourself out? On day 2, our conversation is really about discovering careers in healthcare. And so we'll have panelists of different healthcare occupations from large and small providers. Kaiser Permanente is wonderful, certainly biased about that. But there's also other providers who have either, both outpatient and inpatient roles and large and small providers. And so we're bringing together many different providers and clinicians and administrative professionals to be able to talk to students about different healthcare careers. The third day is really this occupation diagnosis, where we're going to have these synchronous and asynchronous presentations and breakout rooms with providers to be able to talk about the different pathways that it really took for individuals to get to their employment. So while one day we're talking about these are all the jobs that you can have, another conversation is, and these are all the different ways that you can get there. On the fourth day, we are partnering with our different educators to be able to talk about what are the collegiate programs that are going to help you get to the career that you're interested in. For some people, that might be a career college. For some, it might be a nonprofit organization or a nonprofit school. For some, it might be private or public. So there's lots of different options. And so we're bringing in our education folks to be able to talk to students about that. And our fifth day is really the one that I'm personally most excited about. It's I've learned all this great stuff. Now, what do I do with this information? And so we're inviting not just the students to have this experience, but also their parents and their guardians, as well as the school, counselors and support staff, to be able to talk about and learn from our professionals about how do I now help these students who are fired up about healthcare careers get to the next step. So we are really excited about, this experience, and we are very cognizant about the fact that school does not look like school normally looks. When we did this 2 years ago, we brought people to one space and were able to have this experience all at one time. But we know because of the different school schedules and synchronous and asynchronous learning times, we've got a great platform that we'll be working with to be able to offer some Zoom-like experiences that are both synchronous and asynchronous. So giving students the opportunity to ask questions live, but also some other experiences where they'll be watching kind of a playback of an experience and being able to take their own notes from it. So that kind of brings me to this part about wow, this sounds awesome and fun. How do I get involved? I'm so glad you're ready to know. There are many different ways that you can get involved. And, this idea about if you don't feel that you are the DJ3 of the group and have this level of energy that that is clearly rubbed off on me, but this is how I show up naturally, right? But if you're not like the Jacksons and don't show up as charismatic as a speaker of this, you might know someone in your organization who has this level of energy that can really appeal to students. And if you know that person, we want to meet them. And so you can think about sharing with us some folks that might be good to be able to do a discussion or be a part of a panel to be able to support the learnings of students. If you're an individual who is close to or has the purse strings at your organization that wants to be able to donate, I'm really excited that Permanente is going to be helping us with this event, but we do need some additional funds to be able to make sure that this program works. So we'd love to be able to hear from you that way. What are your college's post-secondary healthcare programs? We want to be able to highlight you on day 4. And then also just all around, if you've got some ideas, if you've got the time, well, let's be honest, nobody has time. So if you've got the passion that allows you to be able to create space for you to get involved, we have committees that are working on different parts of this work and would love to be able to plug you in that way. So I don't know, Lisa, Shauna, if I've missed anything about this event, but would love for you to chime in now so that we can make sure we wrap this one up with a bow. But we're really hoping that we'll have many people from this group wanting to be able to step in with their time, talent, or their treasure. So thanks so much for the opportunity to share.
Awesome overview, Brianna. Excellent. I have nothing to add, and I aspire to achieve a Jackson level of energy in my future presentations.
Thanks, Shauna.
Yeah, same. Thanks so much, Brianna, for your energy and enthusiasm. And I mean, I think the event in and of itself is equally as exciting as the amount of energy you're bringing to it. So please feel free, reach out to Brianna or myself. We're tag teaming this a little bit. If you have, you do have someone at your organization who's interested, or if you have students who are like, yeah, I got to connect them. When are we saving the date? So with that, I'm going to hand the floor over to Ryan, who is going to give us kind of an overview of how we're funding this bigger student experience package that the event is ideally one small facet of. Ryan, take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Lisa. And I have the unenviable position of following a Jackson, so I will try to channel as much energy there. I wanted to highlight a couple exciting things about going forward. But before we doing that, I just want to take a moment to appreciate how awesome it is that all of our industry partners and our support partners, in the midst of all that is going on in our worlds, is still moving this talent pipeline work forward. We've still kept our eye on the prize and recognizing that we need to be able to continue to engage with the next generation of healthcare workers and healthcare leaders as they're coming about. And as Brianna said, we're all really tapped for time these days, so we're tapping into those extra energy stores as we go forward. But in terms of going forward, we have some exciting things going on. So one thing I wanted to share is that the Gates Alumni Group is coming to help HILT and the Talent Pipeline Committee. So these are talented professionals that have previously worked at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation that then volunteer and provide pro bono expertise. And we are recognizing that the investment in technology, that virtual events are not going to go away once COVID is in the rearview mirror. Instead, the integration of technology, the ability to be able to engage students in the classroom through virtual tools is going to be really important. So they're doing a great survey of what are those technology platforms and tools out there for a long-term investment by the partnership around HILT to be able to keep this work going. So what would take Lisa and James and Lindsay and I hours and hours and hours and hours to do, and likely might get done by the end of the year, they put together a 6-week sprint and have been doing interviews with folks that are going to come back to us. So it's super exciting that we have support from the talent that was developed by the Gates Foundation to be able to help out our work. We are also looking forward, we've engaged the Career Connect Washington group. So this is the governor's initiative to be able to reach out to youth and through a variety of different pathways, be able to help young people be able to do career exploration and then also to be able to launch their careers while they're already in high school. So we are currently assessing, there's a funding opportunity that is out there now. So we're currently assessing that and looking at some partnerships around to be able to apply for that so that we can have some long-term sustainability for this work. So with that, be ready. We may be reaching out through our wonderful captains teams for letters of support from industry, because that is key to that, is that industry engagement, and we have that here at HILT. So if you can look for something and hopefully be able to have your organization be able to sign on and say, yes, we do want to be able to support this amazing work that's going on with the Talent Pipeline Committee. These are pretty quick turns, so just want to give everybody a heads up that that might be coming. But while the public investment will be great to be able to move this into a sustainable area, we are going to be seeking additional and committed industry engagement and support of resources. So I would like to ask all of our industry partners we will be circling back with you about what's the best way that we can gather those resources so that we can have this work as a sustainable, ongoing system of work to be able to do. And it's not just the annual event. We want to be able to engage students throughout the year, be able to grab that momentum. And as Brianna mentioned, our focus is specifically on BIPOC students. It's on students that are English language learners. It's on students in school districts that have high levels of free and reduced lunch. So that is where we're focusing so that we can ensure that our next generation of healthcare clinicians, our next generation of healthcare leaders reflects the communities that we're able to serve. So we will be coming back there, but wanted to put that out there. Again, so many exciting things. And again, just all the work that's there. We have an amazing opportunity to make something that is sustainable, that is viable, and most importantly, that is equitable. So with that, I will turn it back over to Liesl so that we can tee up our future conversation.
Thanks, Ryan. Really exciting. And definitely more things for your emails in the future. So without further ado, we're going to roll into our feature panel discussion here, which Denise Banuelos has kindly agreed to moderate. Thank you so very much. You've already heard from Denise this morning. So without further ado, I'm going to hand the floor over to Denise to set the stage for our vaccination rollout panel. Looks like you're muted.
I try to be good to stay on mute and then I forget. Thank you, Lisa. You know, if you need to stand up and stretch your legs and shake it out, now's the time. We have about 20 minutes to hear from our panel of esteemed healthcare professionals. So every day raises new questions, new barriers, and new lessons learned about the vaccination rollout. So this discussion is an opportunity to hear experiences from your healthcare peers out in the field. So I'm excited to introduce Latanda Madden and Jack Slow River. Latanda is an Operations Leadership Fellow at Health Point Community Health Clinics and is very involved in his overall vaccine testing operations. Jack is the Regional Director of Operations for the South at Health Point Community Health Clinics, and they are very focused on standing up vaccine operations with Health Point's internal patient population. Joining them is Jennifer Graves, the Vice President of Quality, Safety, and the Regional Chief Nursing Executive at Kaiser Permanente. She has been involved in vaccine logistics for KP since the beginning, and I'm honored she is here to share KP's journey. Just as a reminder to our panelists, I will be going through questions to learn about your journey, but as you keep your answers, I ask that you keep your answers brief, under 2 minutes for each question, as we only have about 20 minutes. So to kick us off, I'd love to start with Latanda. Latanda, you know, we've been delivering vaccinations for a couple of months now, and I'm just really curious what has been working for Health Point to date when involving vaccinations.
Okay, hi everybody. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. So just to set the stage really fast, I've been involved with staff vaccinations and then partnering with other community health centers to get other health workers vaccinated. And what's been working is we've been staffing jointly, so not just Health Point staffing the events to get the folks vaccinated, but both of our partners have also sent their great staff members to help with the vaccination. What's also worked is we've had evening and Sunday hours, so folks can get their vaccinations outside of work. We have trained certain folks that are returning folks to help train new staff that comes on, because we don't always have the same volunteers. And something that's really great is we always provide a meal in the middle of our event, so it keeps everybody going and it kind of gives us all the time to kind of come together as well. So some really great things that have happened and that have been positive for us. when we first started, I think we were vaccinating, I think about 160 to 180 in an evening session. We kept that number up, but we were able to get our times down. I mean, probably less, but by an hour by the end of our events because we became so efficient.
Latonda, as a follow-up, how many clinics are you running at a time?
So we would do one per evening, and we've done 14 so far. And they're generally 3 to 4 hour sessions in the evening or 3 to 4 hours on Sunday.
Okay, and have you had any challenges with staffing those clinics?
We've done pretty well because we did ask our other partner CHCs to help support by sending their own, providers, clinical staff, registration staff, and then we have always taken the lead on organizing and running the event each evening. So our leaders in the organization have stepped up to rotate those evenings. Myself, Jack, other leaders. And so we've done pretty good, I have to say. There's been a few times towards the end where people who volunteered, have canceled, but then I just send an email out to a list we gathered in the beginning. That was another tip. We gathered a list within HealthPoint, and I think the other organizations did as well. So I would just re-email it out and ask for volunteers. Towards the end, we just did our last one last Sunday. It got a little harder, I have to say, because people are a little bit tired, and it generally was a lot of the same people. But we were able to comfortably staff each event.
Okay, great. So I'd like to ask similar questions with Jennifer. What is working for Kaiser Permanente?
Yeah, thank you for the invitation to be here, Denise. And I'm a Chief Nursing Officer and have been helping, as Denise alluded to, running our daily command center, our COVID-19 command center. I'd say several things that are working well that were not said by Latonda. I'd say number one, I'd say our partnership with labor is very strong as we look to staff our vaccine clinics and think of novel ways of administering vaccine out in community to more vulnerable populations. Our relationship with SEIU 1199 Northwest has been really, really key. And I didn't know Diane was going to be on this call. So when she texted me and said, hey, I'm like, oh, this is a really good opportunity to highlight, I think, a success in a labor management partnership that's been instrumental, not just in COVID response with us doing other types of things, but during vaccination for sure. I would say we've been able to scale up pretty effectively. We currently have around a 30,000 vaccine per week capability. So that's really, really strong. We started in a couple key locations with a focus really on quality and safety and making sure patients had a really positive experience and felt cared for. So I think that has been a really unique perspective on making sure that we both have the throughput that we need, but also are focusing really on things that are important to me as a quality and safety officer with those items. And I'd also say too, making sure that we have a variety of times and days for our vaccine clinics. I think we talked about evenings and weekends and making sure that, particularly after that second dose where we know a significant portion of the population doesn't feel wonderful and might need a little bit of downtime, how do we make sure that we're supporting our staff who might need to do this prior to a day off, or people in the public that might have other constraints on their time, to make sure that we're offering flexibility on our end that meets our community's needs and aren't necessarily doing things when it's convenient for us at KP. So I've been really proud of the way we've been able to be flexible, and particularly around, weather events, extreme weather events, and vaccine availability and those types of things. I think flexibility has been great. And I'd end with, besides the labor management partnerships with other key people so we can plan in tandem with others. There's been a lot of what I would call parallel processing in different people across the state. So we're fortunate. I think what's working well for us is a tight relationship with the governor and the governor's office, working very closely with public health and our public health jurisdictions to make sure that we're aligned in how we want to target our vaccine administration. And then also working with other experts across the state, and that might look different. I know some companies are working with Starbucks to make sure that
there's a keen eye on what they can offer as far as expertise and looking at logistics and throughput. Microsoft has been a great partner to many of us in helping find technology solutions that will be help us scale most effectively and speak across systems. So I think a lot of very big successes in the world of partnerships that was lacking, as you know, in our former administration, and trying to pull that together at the state level, I think is working well.
Great, thank you. Jack, I'd like to ask you, what has been, and I know that Latonda spoke briefly on this, but I didn't ask this formally, so I'm going to give you the opportunity to explore this question a little bit more about how you're organizing and utilizing your volunteers.
Yeah, we're still actually working on that. We've been using our staff primarily, and in partnership with other CHCs, Country Doc and Neighbor Care, to staff the clinics that we did for our community partners. But we're exploring community partnerships right now, and we're using our staff to vaccinate our patients in our clinics.
Have you benefited from using students at all?
We have a cohort of UW nursing students who have certainly been an asset to our organization in the last few weeks. But we really are looking at how we can bring things more to scale. But because of the supply chain challenges that we faced and other bureaucratic barriers, we've really had a difficult time launching steady operations in South King County, where communities are most impacted.
Wow. Okay. And so, speaking of barriers, what are some other persistent barriers that you have experienced, or what more is needed in this space?
Well, we've applied to be distribution or hub sites in all of our locations, but our applications have been caught up for some reason in DOH, which has now limited our ability to provide vaccines in communities that people have been receiving care in for, we've been around for 50 years, and we're able to leverage our relationships with communities that we've built. We have an equity lens from the very beginning of this work, and it's really challenging that we've had to submit applications multiple times and still are pending approval in 4 locations. So we're not able to administer vaccine in Federal Way, in Tukwila, in Bothell, and in Auburn North. Others of our sites we are, but it's just really tough that we're limited in this way.
Wow. And so are there any challenges in getting information out to the communities about this?
I mean, I think there are many challenges, right? Like, first, that how the vaccine works is unique, and that requires a conversation. And many people want to talk with their primary care providers about, how it's working and what are the risks. And we've been doing a great job of that. We have services available in multiple languages. So understanding how it works and then getting access to appointments is another challenge. We have more demand than we're able to provide access for.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to ask Jennifer the same question about barriers and challenges that you're experiencing.
Yeah, I'd say ditto, ditto, ditto. The vaccine allocation, I think, has been a really big challenge for all of us, and it's difficult to anticipate even what we need to do for next week's operations when we don't have a really good line of sight into what's happening very far down the road. And I would say that's huge. And to give you some context, there are 1,300 registered providers that have been approved by Department of Health in this state. Only about 25% of those right now are getting any vaccine allocation. And so until we can get a more reliable
allocation strategy, we won't be able to meet the demand. And I think with weather and other things, canceling, or I should call it rescheduling to be more politically correct, but that has definitely been a challenge. I think, the issue of vaccine hesitancy is real. It's real inside our healthcare systems as it is in our communities. And so figuring out how we bridge the hesitancy piece and also address equity, I think, are two challenges that we still need to focus on. We have patients who are homebound who need vaccine. We have adult family homes. We have people who can't come to all of us. We need to be able to figure out how do we partner, whether it's with churches and other organizations or food banks or our schools, and how do we actually get vaccine out to those more vulnerable populations when there are such huge logistics around cold chain management and handling, and how when you draw something out of a multi-dose vial and how many hours it must be given, et cetera. There's a lot of logistical challenges that I think many people who aren't involved day to day, it's very anxiety provoking to be there every day and know it towards even at the end of clinic, as you're counting the people remaining in line and counting the people who are appointed and how many vaccines do I get out of the refrigeration to be able to use. And then if there's a dose or two left because of the overfill on the vial, making sure those drops don't go to waste. So as Atana said, a lot of even daily logistical challenges that need a lot of attention to make sure that we're successful together.
Wow. Yeah, that is a lot to keep up with. And we still have many more to go. So how would you say we're doing with the membership, in getting the membership willing to come get a vaccine? Would you say that they're responding to the clinic opportunities to make appointments?
Oh, absolutely. I think we're inundated with thousands and thousands of calls every day. Early on, when vaccine was released in December, I know we had more calls in 2 days than we would typically have even during high volumes in COVID in a month. And so it actually crashed our systems and crashed our IT systems for a little bit of time. And we thought we had a fairly robust infrastructure, but it does tell you that in many ways we weren't prepared for this pandemic or the switching of care. We do know, I would say those are people who are able to reach out to us. And we do recognize that there is also a digital divide in our community, meaning everybody does not have access to the internet, nor do they have access sometimes to telephone and other ways to get a hold of us. And so right now we are trying to make sure that we are offering equal opportunity, and whether that's reserving sometimes for vaccines for special populations or other outreach opportunities that we're leveraging those. But yes, very high demand, much more demand than we have supply right now.
Okay. So before we wrap up, I do want to ask, just this is a general question to any one of you on the panel. What's the connection between vaccine volunteers and building a future pipeline of healthcare professionals? Do you see an opportunity to leverage the two?
Just real quickly, I just think it gives them a nice introduction, a good lens. It feels good when you're doing these events and giving vaccinations to patients. So it's a good way to start seeing what healthcare is about, I feel, and it's a positive. Patients are so excited, and we all kind of leave there feeling really good. So I think it's a good way to be introduced.
Yeah, this is Jennifer. I'd say same. I think it's actually probably an opportunity we can harness even more strongly. As I look at clinical, I'm using volunteers with air quotes here. What we're actually trying to do with some of our clinical volunteers is bring them in on a temporary part-time basis on an employed status, so we can actually then help the economy in that way as well. And then we are also hiring, we've just recently posted nurse technician, I think 15 is what I approved, was 15 nurse technician positions who would be, those students would be employed by us, have a main focus for the next 6 months on vaccination, and then hopefully be able to stay their career with us at KP and move into a nurse residency position and then on into a registered nurse position. So I'm excited about this opportunity to kind of keep that energy and momentum and bringing students in an employed fashion as well.
Great. Excellent. excellent ideas from both healthcare organizations. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. I want to thank Latanda, Jack, and Jennifer for their time and for sharing their organization's experiences with the vaccine with our HILT network. Now is an opportunity for everyone to have a space to share what your organization is doing as far as role and strategy for the vaccine. So I'm gonna pass it back over to Ryan, who's going to get us into breakout rooms and expand this conversation. So thanks again, Latanda, Jennifer, and Jack for sharing and giving us your time this morning.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Denise, for facilitating that. And yes, thanks to our three panelists, a virtual round of applause here. So we are going to go into breakout rooms. And so with that, either Liesl, James, or myself will be in either of these groups, and we will likely facilitate a couple questions. So for those that were not on the panel, we want to know what your organization's doing. So is there somebody who's got some awesome strategies to be able to share, different structures that you're taking a look at, sharing out what's working and also what's not, and then also starting to get some ideas of what's needed as we're putting these things together. If you have not done Zoom breakout rooms yet, please note that when the timer reaches 0, you are done. It will bring you back into the main room and cut you off mid-sentence. So just be aware of that and keep an eye as that time ticks down, and then we'll have some time to be able to share out once we go there. So James has set us up into 3 different groups. So James, whenever you are ready, you can push the red button of breakout.
All right, I'm going to be pushing the button. 3, 2, 1. I don't know how to go into Hey, Liesl.
Hey, I got put in a room with Ryan, so I exited.
Oh, can you go into room 3?
Let me see if I have.
I couldn't find your name. That's why I was like, I could not find Liesl.
It looks like maybe I was already in a room. Can you add?
Should I join 3?
Yeah, one of us should. If you have
Okay.
it, you try to put me.
Okay. Yep, I'm gonna join it. Well, how long are the rooms for? That's.
Yeah, so the room is gonna be. Oh, good idea. We need to probably head back in around 10:40.
Okay. Do you want to go in a room, or do you want me to go in that room?
If you can put me in the room, I'm happy to go in the room.
I'm sending you right now. $10.40. Oh, yeah, that's right. I see. Right, guess what you do. Got it. Oh. Oh.
Hi, welcome back. We're going to let a few more people trickle in here. I'm not sure how many people we lost during the breakouts. A few more trickle in, and then we're going to have your HILT convening team Ryan, Lindsay, and myself, yes, we'll all do a very brief report out before we close out the meeting. So, Ryan, can you kick us off and summarize?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
Yeah, so we were group one, and a couple of highlights from the conversation. Diane got into a little bit more detail about the role that 1199 has been playing, and highlighted that they have created an innovation fund that was negotiated in their last collective bargaining agreement. That's a $4 million fund that is going to be used to increase the availability of some joint mobile teams to be able to get out, particularly into BIPOC communities, and being able to use 1199 members that have multiple language competencies to be able to get into communities where language and understanding could be a potential barrier. And again, she highlighted the partnership with King County Public Health. And so that's a great, I think that's in terms of opportunities and things just going well, that's an amazing resource to be able to have. Kevin Henry mentioned that the NAACP, their health committee, is doing a series of webinars that are focusing on some of the racial bias issues surrounding vaccine rollout. And so he shared his information in there as well, and then also shared that if folks need to be able to connect to the media, he shared that the South City Emerald is an amazing outlet, particularly reaching underserved communities in South Seattle and South King County. But Kevin can facilitate any of that to be able to do that as well. So hearing from Kaiser, as they're one of the main providers of the vaccine, particularly as we get past some of these roadblocks in terms of supply, they're really looking for options to be able to get out into communities, potentially partnering with Starbucks to be able to use their multiple locations in parking lots with a real focus on getting to those vulnerable communities. And then finally wanted to mention that Kevin from SJI was talking about that the digital divide is an issue. If you have to have a computer and high-speed internet to be able to make an appointment, that continues to be a barrier. And there's lots of questions from job seekers, not just in healthcare, but in general. Do I have to have the vaccine to go back to work? What does that mean for me safely being able to re-enter the workforce? So from a larger workforce perspective, there's some questions there. And then I guess the last thing is a happy thing. So Vicki from Seattle College has shared that their students are out today at Kent in the Showware Center actually supporting vaccines. So as we are meeting here today and talking about the future, there are students on the ground being able to help get that vaccine out. So kudos to South Seattle College and all the great partnerships that have been here facilitated at HILT.
Thanks, Ryan. Lindsay?
Yes, so I don't remember what number group we were, but we had a great group. From the support partner side, we had WorkSource represented by Sharon, Renton School District. We had Terry, Katie from Seattle School District, and Jennifer Johnson from Highline. And from the healthcare organization side, we had both Betsy and Jennifer from Kaiser Permanente. We had Rachel from Swedish, as well as James from King County Behavioral Health. So we were able to hear a little bit more, especially from Swedish and the King County Behavioral Health side on vaccination rollout and what it's taking, some conversation about the mass vaccination sites, the logistics that takes was talked about sort of at the end of our conversation. Also mobile units and how effective, especially for Swedish, the mobile units have been to get out to some of those communities that otherwise are just not going to be able to engage directly and proactively. And so even sort of a wish for more, right? Like how do we expand that level of engagement with communities that really need the information and the vaccinations directly? I was very curious and struck by a comment from you, James, from King County Behavioral Health, which was really a comment we heard way back at the beginning of COVID, right? Which was healthcare organizations constantly having to figure out how to be really agile with moving staff around. So really, what staff have the appropriate skill sets and abilities, and where can we put them quickly so that we can get the vaccination rollout teams up and running. A couple other things I think that I'll mention, and maybe if Jennifer from Kaiser is still on, perhaps you can put this tool in the chat box. Jennifer, you mentioned a really brand new, and it sounds very effective, toolkit from the Washington State Hospital Association on vaccinations and equity. And so if you're still on, or if somebody else has that link to the WISHA toolkit, I think that might be something that's valuable for everyone. A couple other things that I'll just highlight from our conversation that I think really reiterated some conversations that the HILT has had over the past few months is, one, are we using our colleges really effectively for mass vaccinations? Are we using our students? Highline College, Jennifer Johnson said, hey, look, you know, we are the center of diversity in King County, and our college campus is a great logistical place to make things happen. So reach out to us and reach out to Jennifer. Jennifer can connect you if you're a healthcare organization who might be able to use that site. Let's make that happen. And then the final thing, or two final things, Lumen Field kept coming up. Lumen Field. I think Jennifer from Kaiser said 16 to 18,000 vaccinations a day expected at that site. And so the logistics that will take, Swedish, I think, also mentioned this is going to take people. And so there are going to start being more and more positions advertised and people needed. And so we made the connection back to what Jesus from Seymour shared and Marisol from the WDC shared. How can we take advantage of this funding opportunity that places dislocated workers and trains them to be part of vaccination rollout teams? And then I think, what else am I missing? Team, did I miss anything?
Did great, did us proud.
Okay, good. Thanks, Jennifer.
You've had all the Jennifers. Quite a powerhouse of a room. All right, so I'm gonna briefly go over what my group talked about. So one of the first things that came up was that flexibility and being agile is absolutely key in these times. It was brought up that there are eight, that's 2 hands worth of portals that you have to report back to Moderna in order to report on the vaccine, which essentially triples the work. It is a logistical challenge to track everything, and the demand is high, and then the supply does not meet that demand. But yes, fingers crossed that we are looking forward to needing to be even more agile and flexible as the supply increases. And that is something that healthcare is no stranger to, right? Being flexible, being agile. Our providers are the best at it. In our room, apologies, was ICHS with Brandon representing. We had Seattle Children's. We had the Washington Alliance for Better Schools. Well, we also had the Office of Superintendent and Instruction, and the Swedish was also in the room. We talked a little bit about how Children's was able to vaccinate staff, but their direct patient population is not on one of the first priority lists. So how can they continue to be a provider and a support to the community around? They started off with one physical location, and now logistics around how to be more mobile and reach some of those populations that are further from accessing a physical site, how they can be prioritized. Also thinking about how to plug in volunteers, how to plug in student nurses, and knowing that when you're not using your own staff, that making sure that you're using that volunteer or that intern in the right way. With all of these 8 different systems that you have to plug into, just the logistics of that is taking a lot more intent and time. And then both Children's and the Washington Alliance for Better Schools brought up a really great point that while we know that there are communities that are hesitant, we are maybe over assuming a lot of hesitancy, but we're not taking into consideration that there are systems in place that are are natural barriers to information, to the vaccine, et cetera, and that we have good intentions behind our assumption around hesitancy, but it's still an assumption. And so just keeping that in mind, hopefully can get us to those people who, again, systems are putting barriers in place. WABS, the Washington Alliance for Better School, does have a parent leadership program with over 40,000 families involved, and they've been partnering with Providence to help get information from Providence, a healthcare partner, directly to parent leaders and these 40,000 families in the network. So if anyone else is interested in helping share vaccine education and information with over 40,000 families across, I believe it's over Pierce and King County, with the exception of like one school district. Shireen is working on that partnership with Providence right now. We're just, the group was really excited that, there are moving parts and everyone is excited and everyone's willing to be agile and flexible and ready for the supply to meet the demand, even though it's going to be, a lot of work, but they're ready for this to be over. So with that, we're going to transition to our final words. Our HILT captain, Shauna Rubkin from Seattle Children, is going to say some final words and march us out here around 11. So well, take it away, Shauna.
Thank you so much, Liesl. Wow, we've had a packed couple of hours here. We covered a lot. There's a lot going on, and there is a lot still coming and planned for the spring, as we all heard. So before we wrap, my job is just to do a quick recap and reminder of the HILT initiatives that are coming up, so that you can think about how you might want to plug in and participate as you're able. Lots of different opportunities to continue to strengthen our network and to continue to make this healthcare workforce system stronger for each of our organizations and for the whole region. So just a reminder, on March 2nd is when the HILT captains are convening the first kind of formal discussion around developing a anti-racism commitment statement for HILT. So definitely let us know. You're welcome to put in the chat if you'd like to participate in that. Or I'm sure that Liesl and Ryan and Lindsay would all be open to communications if you need to check schedules and want to loop back following the meeting. Also a reminder, Brianna shared some great details about the virtual event that's being planned by the Talent Pipeline Committee. Full steam ahead for that. And just a reminder that that is scheduled for the last week of April 26th to the 30th. And if you have questions about that or want to participate or understand more about how you can be involved or support that, please reach out to Brianna or Liesl. And then, as Ryan mentioned, the virtual event is part of a larger overall student experience package approach, which includes the virtual event as well as some of the other activities you've heard from the talent in the past. So the Speakers Bureau, as well as some efforts on developing a video clearinghouse, and also some conceptual planning around the possibility of bringing on a mentorship kind of program. So that sort of to create a fully rounded student experience package. And as Ryan mentioned, we're in the process of securing funding to really operationalize that, the full package. So if that is something that you are, again, have questions about or ideas, or just want to be involved in some way, please reach out to Ryan. And then Denise, thank you for the amazing recap of the winter education info exchange. We've seen partnerships start to build out of that last connection. And just a note that there will be the spring information exchange is scheduled for April 14th from 3 to 4:30. So that's a little bit of a save the date. more to come on that. And then finally, just a note to some of you who've been involved with HILT activities for a while will recall that there was an early focus on affordable workforce housing. That was a priority that came up very early in discussions on the HILT, and something that we grappled with around where and if there might be a space to connect our collective efforts on that issue that we agreed was impacting our workforce. And that early work resulted in some recommendations to the mayor's Housing First initiative, as well as some blueprints for what at the time we were calling innovation funds for both emergency and longer term housing sustainability that was specifically focused for healthcare workers. And that activity sort of got put on hold because of COVID and because of just a very large number of priorities that both HILT and us individually as healthcare organizations were balancing. But there is a new related opportunity for employees who may be housing insecure and or food, transportation, and childcare insecure. So we know that those are insecurities that impact our workforce. We may not always be aware of those challenges as they are coming up in the lives of our workforce, but it is certainly an impact on stability and employment. So there is an announcement coming, just a heads up to keep an eye out for an announcement and an opportunity soon for your organization to take advantage of a Balmer Foundation grant that will be doing a pilot for an on-site resource navigator specifically for employees in need of these types of wraparound supports, and particularly when they're trying to pursue education and training to advance their careers. So just a heads up to keep an eye out for that. And full steam ahead in spring 2021. I can't believe it's already coming up on the end of February. So just a quick recap, and thanks to everyone for being a part of this incredibly rich and full discussion today.
That was amazing. Thanks, Shauna, for
Awesome.
a lot of information. We're just shy of 11 o'clock. I'll give you guys 30 seconds back. Have a really great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. James, did you save the chat?
I'm saving it right now.
Okay, cool. Yep, yeah.
That's why I'm having that.
Yeah, just make sure. Good deal. All right. No, it went well. Few little hiccups with timing.
I think it went great.
Yeah. No, we're fine. Yeah, so.
Yeah, definitely lost a lot of people after the breakouts or before the breakouts. But I mean, yeah, we're still recording, so maybe we should stop recording.
Oh, it's still recording? I was looking for that.